Welcome to the Fiber Arts Fairy. If you took my recent class on making felt applique prayer flags, you'll remember that we ran out of time to finish. This video will show you the finishing process I described in the class. Before endeavoring these final steps, here's what we should already have finished. All of your decorative elements have been sewn down to the background panel. This includes felt shapes, buttons, decorative stitches, and any optional beadwork. If you haven't finished all of these steps, pause the video and save it for when you're ready. When you are ready to rock, here's what this video is going to teach you. We are going to sew the background panel to the flag piece. We're going to sew the tunnel at the top for the dowel, secure the dowel in place with a ribbon for hanging up, and we're going to glue on rhinestones, but this step is definitely optional, just like with beads. Step 1. Sew the finished background panel onto the black flag piece. Your class kit came with a needle case that includes 5 ball head pins. We're going to use these 5 pins to pin your background panel down to the black flag. Center the pieces evenly before pinning. The bottom 4 sides should be as even as possible, and then you can start pinning the corners. Once the first corner is pinned down, it'll be easier to do the other 4. Once everything is pinned in place, we can start stitching. I chose pink thread here because I think it looks nice with the golden yellow felt. I'm using pearl cotton embroidery thread. It's a 2-strand thread that's nice and easy to use, I think, in comparison to 6-strand thread, especially if you're a beginner. Whenever I thread my needle, you're going to see my hand disappear off the screen, and you can rest assured that the thread is going right into my mouth. I found that getting the thread slick from spit makes threading the needle so much easier, even though it's a little bit gross to do in front of people. As I start, I don't really want big thread knots showing up on the back. This is just a personal preference, so you can feel free to do things differently. But what I'm going to do is hide my knot between the 2 layers of felt. I figure out where the edge of the top piece ends, and then I dip in for a stitch under it on the black flag layer. I then pinch the knot between the 2 layers and begin to stitch. This is one of the many ways that I hide my terrible secrets. I tend to like using a blanket stitch for this step, but you could just as easily choose to use a running stitch or a back stitch instead. Really, any stitch that firmly tacks the 2 layers together is great. I'm going to speed this part up for the sake of all of our attention spans. Let's slow down here to watch me round a corner for those of you who are using a blanket stitch as well. While using the blanket stitch as you round a corner, your inner stitch width should get closer together as your outer stitches get wider. Your stitches end up forming a sort of radiating arc. This will look really nice as long as you keep your stitches even. Don't be afraid to move and remove your pins as you need to. It's better to not have them in the way while you're making stitches. Here we've come to the end of our thread. You might be able to squeeze another stitch out, but I think it's best to tie off and rethread. First, we'll take the needle to the back of the project by anchoring the last stitch we made. Next, anchor your knot through a stitch on the back. To be safe, I like to do at least 2 knots. Now we're going to hide the tail of this knot between the 2 layers of felt, sort of like how we started this line of stitches. Dig down with your needle and waggle it until it's in between the layers of felt. Remember to check the back side of your work to make sure you didn't accidentally make a visible stitch on the other side. Now pull your needle and thread through, give a little tug so the felt puckers a little, and then trim. Now you can see that the tail has disappeared completely. Good job! Now it's time to rethread with the same color. And it goes right in the mouth. No one's here to stop me, so I'm going to keep doing it. Plus, the wet end is also now way easier to form a knot from. Just like at the beginning, we're going to hide the big honking knot between the 2 layers. But this time we'll use the last stitch as an anchor. Open the 2 layers of wool up like a wallet, and hook your needle up under the last stitch. Grab your knot and push it down between the layers, then pinch it in place as you make your first stitch. You'll have to be gentle while doing this so that you don't accidentally pull your knot all the way through. With some gentle tugging and nudging, there shouldn't be much visual proof left that you changed threads here. Now you can continue on your merry way stitching until you need to rethread again. We're going to skip forward about half an hour of stitching to keep this video short. I will be posting some ASMR stitching videos in the future for freaks like me that just want to watch someone sew, but this video is more of a tutorial. So here we are, coming almost to the end of step 1. I'll slow down here in a moment to show what happens when I underestimate how much thread was needed to finish. With only 1 stitch needed to finish, I find myself tying off to rethread. Just like before, I waggle my needle between the 2 layers to hide my tail. Then I check the butt before I pull through. Now I'm going to thread up for just 1 final stitch. I feel increasingly silly, but I left this in the video to let you know that everyone makes mistakes, and it's okay to bork things up as you learn, because you'll be making the same silly mistakes after 30 years of sewing. There's just no escaping mistakes, so just roll with it gracefully. You can also choose to yell or throw your shoe if you're sure you can get it back. Once again, I'm going to hook under my previous stitch to trap the knot in the liminal space between layers, and then make my final stitch. Now we've finally made it all the way around the flag. To finish, just stab down into the very first stitch you'd made. This will create the illusion of an unbroken chain of stitches. Bring your needle to the back of your flag, tie off, and hide your tail. Step 2. Sew a tunnel at the top for the dowel. To make a tunnel for the dowel, take the top flap and fold it down until it touches the top of your background layer. It's hard to see here because I just had to use black felt, but we're lining up the top flap with your stitches and pinning it in place. I like to use just 3 pins for this part. Any more than 3 pins seems to just get in the way. To start this line of stitches, I'm going to hide my knot between the 2 layers at the edge. Use your thumb to hold the flap open, then stab through the bottom layer. Push the knot between layers, then pinch to hold it in place as you make the first stitch. I'm going to use a back stitch for this line, but my first stitch is a whip stitch over the edge because I think it looks nice and tidy. With that first stitch out of the way, now we can start back stitching in earnest. I'll slow the video back down here to show you how to change threads when you've run out. Bring your needle to the back and tie off. Like I showed earlier in the video, you can hide your tail between the 2 layers of felt, but this time it's going to be hidden in the tunnel. Check your butt for any errant stitches, then pull through and trim. Rethread with the same color, and we'll hide the knot between layers as we start stitching again. Thumb open the flap, then stab down through where your last stitch was on the inside. Pull your needle through to the back, then pinch the knot between the 2 layers as you make the first stitch. Now you can continue stitching until the end of this line. We're at the end now, ready to land the finishing stitch. Like at the beginning, we're going to whip a stitch over this edge. Bring your needle to the back of the project, tie it off, and hide your tail in the tunnel between layers. Take a moment to admire your work and pat yourself on the back a little. But then become painfully aware that the margins aren't as uniform as you thought they were. It's time to trim off the excess that no one but me would notice because I've had too much coffee and because I've tied my self-worth to my earthly work. There we go. No one will know. Step 3. Secure the dowel with a ribbon for hanging. In your class kit, you should have received a dowel with indentations on both ends. You hopefully also walked away from the class with a length of ribbon in the color of your choice. Using a double knot, aim to tie on top of that indentation because it's going to prevent your ribbon from sliding around later. With one end secured, slide the other end of the dowel into the tunnel at the top of the flag. You can now tie the other end, just like the first, but give the ribbon some slack so that it will hang nicely. Once both sides are securely tied, trim the ribbon tails. I like to trim mine at a slanted angle. Shift your knots around a little to make sure they sit on the same side of the dowel. This will make the flag hang better later. Take a moment to admire your work and to think about how you're going to retie that ribbon a little bit shorter as soon as no one's looking. Step 4. Glue some shiny things onto your flag. As in most cases, I must strongly discourage eating the glue. The glue I've chosen to not eat today is Alien's brand Clear Gel Tacky Glue, which comes in a pin tube. It claims to be non-toxic and to dry permanently. I recommend using a pair of tweezers with angled tips that make it easier to pick up rhinestones that sit flat on a surface. The rhinestones I'm using today are made of glass. Give your glue tube a shake to shift any air bubbles away from the nozzle before you start using it. Squeeze out a very small dot of glue. Then pick up a rhinestone to carefully place on top of it. Once in place, use your tweezers to gently press the crystal into the glue. You can plan a pattern, or you can choose to randomly apply the rhinestones to your flag. I tend to put them down in a predetermined pattern because I find it cuts down on decision fatigue. I'm going to keep gluing my blue crystals down at regular intervals until it's time to switch colors. You can make your life a lot easier by flipping your rhinestones face up before you need to grab them with the tweezers. Here I'm putting down 2 dots of glue because I plan to press down 2 crystals in quick succession. Let's skip to the end here, because at this point you're just eating the glue. Once all of your rhinestones are on, the finished flag should lie flat overnight to let the glue dry. In the morning you can safely hang it up. Thank you so much for coming to my class to learn a bit about wool felt applique. I hope this video was some help in finishing your project, and I can't wait to see you again at my next class.